If Iran has won by not losing, where does Israel stand now? With an election just months away, Israelis question what's been gained under Benjamin Netanyahu's right-wing coalition. Fighting brutal wars on multiple fronts, has the militaristic approach to security paid off? Or has it damaged the U.S.-Israel relationship beyond repair? I'm Andrea Sankey, and today's newsmaker is Israel. Acutely aware of a judgment day approaching, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is revealing a new strategy to voters, one where he will seek to form a broad national government if re-elected. It's politicking at its best, but in the face of dropping poll numbers and pending legal action against him, Netanyahu needs to campaign very carefully. After some 2 decades at the helm, things have not gone well for Israel. Its military is actively engaged in brutal combat in Gaza and Lebanon, as well as against Iran and Syria. Time and time again, Netanyahu decided it's easier to ask forgiveness later rather than get permission before engaging in risky military ventures. And now that strategy is under the microscope. Here's a look.
A massive explosion in southern Lebanon rocked the landscape on Sunday. Israel said it targeted this area deliberately because it was used by Hezbollah, the Lebanese militant group that has close ties with Iran. Israel occupies 1/5 of Lebanon's territory, which Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and other senior figures in his government say is not going to change.
The important principle established in the agreement is that there will be no redeployment by Israel in southern Lebanon, no withdrawal, as long as the terrorist organization Hezbollah is not disarmed throughout Lebanon, and the safety of the residents of the north is guaranteed.
It's a huge sticking point in the US deal to end the war with Iran. What the US considers a separate conflict entirely, Iran considers to be a linked issue, and a violation of the Memorandum of Understanding to bring a formal and decisive end to the war with Iran.
Under Article 1 of the Memorandum of Understanding, the war on all fronts, including in Lebanon, must come to an end. We are, unfortunately, witnessing that the Zionist regime has continued and continues its attacks.
But beneath Israel's aggressive military tactics that it insists are conducted for its security lies a slow but unmistakable change in the political security of the man in charge. Israel is set to hold elections no later than October. Netanyahu's political future as Israel's longest-serving prime minister no longer looks quite so certain. In a statement on Friday, Netanyahu declared he wants to establish a broad national government, neither right-wing nor left-wing, to reach international agreements. But it comes at a time when Israeli confidence in the prime minister is slipping away. The US president's desire for a ceasefire and end to the war with Iran is seen as a loss for Israel, which views Iran and Hezbollah, its proxy, as Israel's biggest enemy. And a former military chief and opposition politician, Gadi Eisenkot, is rising in prominence ahead of the election, taking swings at the current Israeli government.
Leadership in wartime is judged by 2 central principles. First, the ability to achieve the objectives that were defined. Second, improving Israel's strategic position for many years to come. On both counts, the Israeli government has utterly failed. In fact, the 3 main objectives in the 3 arenas have not been achieved.
Polls suggest that an increasing number of Israelis are worried about the US-Israeli relationship slipping away. Not only have several public rebukes by US President Trump rattled them, but a growing number of Americans hold increasingly unfavorable views of Israel and of Netanyahu, while unquestioned political support for Israel is showing signs of cracks. And bipartisan support for Israel is becoming more of a polarized issue. And on Monday, Netanyahu appeared in a Jerusalem court in a long-standing corruption trial. He denies all allegations of corruption, but the trial so far has stretched over 98 court sessions spread out over a year and a half. But Netanyahu has proven to be a political survivor before. Could this upcoming election be different? Could the man who styles himself as Mr. Security find his electoral success is not nearly as secure as it's been in the past? Or will he remain in power with another coalition, with no clear challenger able to topple him?
So where to now for Israel, with military strategy failing to achieve its goals and elections approaching? Joining me now to debate that and much more are from Tel Aviv, political analyst and contributor to Haaretz, Akiva Eldar. From West Jerusalem, member of the Knesset with the Hadash-Ta'al Alliance, Aida Touma-Sliman. And from London, associate fellow in the Middle East and North Africa program at Chatham House, Yossi Mekelberg. Thank you all so much for being with me. Yossi, I'll start with you. First of all, what is the general sentiment in Israel about the agreement or MOU between Iran and the United States? Do Israelis feel they are less secure now than before going to war with Iran?
I don't think anyone believes that they are more secure. And unfortunately, the main source of information for too many in Israel is what the government is actually trying to feed. That again, it's about absolute victory and not withdrawing from Lebanon and can continue wars in all fronts. The reality is what we see, that Israel is forced to do what the administration in the United States, what President Trump asked them to do. Now, the reality is that there is an MOU, whether with Iran, the framework with Lebanon, but none of them is actually dealing with the root causes of the conflict or is capable to implement it in the short term. So the result of it is probably more of the same what we see. And when Israelis are a few months away from election, they have to make up their mind whether they feel more secure under this government or not.
Just to pick up on one point you made there, I mean, do you believe the Israeli government is forced to do what the U.S. wants it to do? Because, many are arguing now that the truth is the opposite, that it's the United States that does what Israel wants, and that's why we're in this conundrum at present.
I think first of all, President Trump said exactly that. But it's the real test of it to see what's happen next. Of course, they can manipulate the situation. They can provoke. The government can provoke situation. But I think there are limits to how much Israel can upset an American administration, because there are consequences to it. If the administration decides that there are consequences to it, but it doesn't mean that they will not try, for instance, to delay until the midterm, try to see where they can provoke. That's definitely on the table. But the idea that the Israel can defy an American administration at any given point, I don't think. If we look at history, it doesn't happen when there is an American administration that is determined to set the rule.
Ida, I'm wondering what you make of that, and if you could comment as well on the agreement that was mentioned with Lebanon, and if Israelis actually feel secure occupying now 20% of Lebanese territory.
Well, I think there is a very deep discussion and uncertainty among the Israeli citizens, because till today they understood that this government, who had promised them full security, promised them full victory, promised them to make Hamas and Hezbollah vanish, have not reached any of those promises, have not delivered those promises. On the other hand, I think more day after day, they are starting to understand that the only solution can be reached by political agreement. Now, how much everybody is happy with this political agreement, or with the MOU with Iran, or with the agreement signed with Lebanon, I think the agreement signed with Lebanon have made a little bit a favor to Netanyahu, because till today the image was that Netanyahu is receiving orders from the United States of America, from Trump himself, although I think it was in the beginning, this war was initiated because both had an interest in initiating that war, and ended up with a conflict of interest between Netanyahu and Trump, and that's why Trump is pushing to end it. And Netanyahu don't have anything to go back to his constituency to say, look, I've managed to make a victory, and that's why they are not happy with this agreement. With
Okay.
Lebanon, I'm saying that the agreement made him a favor because suddenly he can go back speaking about the fact that there is a possibility to make peace with different states in the region without dealing with the core problem inside the Middle East, which is the Palestinian matter. We can be in good relations with different countries, as if Lebanon now is entering the era of the Abrahami agreements. But in my opinion, this agreement was really bad because it holds in the agreement the reasons for more clashes in the future.
Okay.
When the Lebanese government is agreeing for continuous occupation, Israeli occupation of its lands, this is a very tricky situation where
Okay.
we are as if signing an agreement of endless war rather than ending the war.
Okay, I was actually hoping to go to Akiva at this point. It seems we've lost his connection. We'll try and get that reestablished. So Aida, let me stick with you for a minute, because you said that many Israelis might not be happy at all with the outcome of the military action on Iran. But that doesn't necessarily mean, as we've seen in other countries, that anything changes as far as the electorate is concerned. But do you see that differently in Israel? Is Israeli opinion shifting, in your opinion, enough that it will manifest at the ballot box?
Well, for my regret, the next election in Israel, like the last and the before election, is more around issues related to the personality of Netanyahu, to the fact they want to change the person and not the policy. Even those who are talking about changing Netanyahu, when they wanted to attack him lately, they attacked him from the right side, saying that he didn't finish the job properly, that he should not stop by orders, that he made Israel as a proxy of the United States and not an independent state, which means even those who want to replace Netanyahu are not really bringing a new policy. That's why I think that if this continue, the people more and more are not convinced by the legendary, as if Netanyahu, who managed always to, with his charisma, to convince everybody that he is bringing peace and security and prosperity, etc., etc.
Okay.
People today, because of many reasons, I think that maybe this time things might change, especially because of our will as Palestinian citizens of Israel to change that situation. The crisis inside the Jewish majority is not, till today, is not really resolved unless we, 21% of the population of Israel, are going, looks like, to determine if Netanyahu is going to be a prime minister again or not.
Okay. Then let me pick up with Yossi again. Unfortunately, Akiva's connection is, we're still working on it. But Yossi, as we said, Benjamin Netanyahu is now kind of promising this broad national government going forward, but most suspect he's still going to work closely with his right-wing cohorts that have helped bring Israel to the point it's at today. So then it comes down to whatever the opposition is offering, and you have a former military chief and opposition leader now, Gadi Eisenkopf. What do Israelis see in the opposition, the most viable opposition, I'll argue, that's being offered up? Is there a chance to actually beat this right-wing government And will Netanyahu, if he does win again, actually reach out for a broader coalition, or is that just campaigning?
It is campaigning, and I think he is becoming more and more desperate, which might be a good sign in the sense that he still understands that he might not be able to form the next government. But what Mr. Rama said is so important, because the opposition needs to present alternative which is clear, which is coherent, which is ready not to attack Netanyahu and say that we can do your policy but better than you, because those policies are failed policies, but would come with alternative policies that completely look at how Israel deals not only with its neighbors, of course with the Palestinians, but also domestically. All of this has to change, and change dramatically and radically, because we see what happened to the Israeli society. And one point that it's worth emphasizing, when talking about Palestinian citizens of Israel, that 21%, the fact that all the Jewish parties or the Zionist parties are refusing to form a government with them, all of them. You can say you don't want to form with some that you disagree, but a priori that say that you are not sitting with any of them will probably end by the inability of the opposition to form a coalition, at not least a majority coalition, and prolong a stalemate in a paralysis of the Israeli political system. And I think it's time, that this will change and include these parties in any future coalition, but also it will enable a dialogue which is very different from the violent, the toxic, the venomous dialogue that we see now inside Israel and towards the region. At the end of the day, continue to occupy the West Bank and Gaza and Lebanon, and let's not forget Syria as well, and having endless war in Iran won't bring more security to Israel, because under this government, Israelis are the less secure that they've been for a very, very long time.
Indeed. But I mean, it's interesting, Yossi, that you say the opposition is really only offering up this alternative that, I can do your policy better than you have. So does that mean that so many Israelis are still really convinced that extreme military aggression is the only answer to Israeli security? Are they still okay with what is happening in Gaza, in the West Bank, in Lebanon, in Syria, and in Iran?
I think many of them live in willful denial about it, which doesn't justify it, but it's a reality. They don't want to know what happened every single day in Gaza or in the West Bank and recently in Lebanon. The villages are basically erased. There is difference between what's many in the opposition, when it's Eisenkot or Yair Golan and Yair Lapid and others says, yes, Israel has legitimate security concern, but to overcome them, to resolve them, they need a dialogue with someone. What we see in Lebanon, whether it's an achievement to Netanyahu or not, we'll see. It depends if it's being implemented. But the fact that they found someone to have a dialogue, and the Lebanese government is willing, and Mr. Aoun is ready to actually sign it and agree on that, it means when you, in this case, push to have someone to dialogue with, a partner in this, you can make progress. And the same applies or must apply also to the Palestinian issue. But they're not interested. And if there is no opposition there that said, we can't keep this occupation forever, we can't having basically oppressing millions of people and expect to have security. And that's exactly where you need courageous leadership to say, we had the Netanyahu way, we had the Ben-Gvir and Smotrich. Are you feeling any better about your security or the credibility of the country or any other aspect? And if not, look for an alternative. We'll still have security and the IDF will be still there, but then you can also reach out, call him the enemies or future partners to try to bring this to an end. And that's you don't see.
Okay, I'm being told we actually do have Akiva now. So, Akiva, let me try and bring you into the conversation. I'm not sure how much you actually heard of the exchange there, but looking toward the election expected to be in October, we're seeing that many Israelis aren't necessarily rejecting, even if they're dissatisfied with the outcomes, they're not necessarily rejecting their governing coalition outright. And then, as Yossi and Ida were both saying, there's this mentality that the opposition is only saying we can do Netanyahu's policy somehow better than Netanyahu. So you've got 21% of the population in itself that is suffering the fate of this military aggression, as well as what's happening in the West Bank and in Gaza. Do you see any chance for the Israeli electorate, just with that contingent of society, to turn on Netanyahu in the election and make a genuine change in Israeli domestic politics through their vote?
Well, yes, thanks for having me back. I'm sorry about the technical problems. I want to offer you an answer by reading few lines from a letter that was leaked to the media, I guess, by one of the closest politicians to Netanyahu, the Minister of Transportation and member of the cabinet, Miri Regev. And it says the following: I find it a national duty to contact you in light of the latest development and the new political reality that has been forced upon us. We are currently faced with a complex reality in which the hands of the State of Israel are largely tied following the agreement recently signed with Iran. And another line is talking about Israel can no longer rely on a logistical island state model. And this is a follow-up of the Biden plans, the 2048, which is when we will mark 100 years of the establishment of the State of Israel, a train, a railway that will connect Israel to India in the south and Turkey in the north. And the Minister of Transportation, who is in charge of this huge project, is putting the blame on Netanyahu. Actually, what he says, you are a loser. So, and this was published in the Israeli media just yesterday. People are not stupid. Well, some of them are actually. But Netanyahu can no longer play the magician that can throw the balls and the tail. Israel is wagging the American dog. What he's doing right now is trying to put himself as the underdog. When he cannot, the tail cannot wag the dog, he's playing the underdog. The Israeli left and the deep state have joined forces against him. He is Mr. Unity, the person who has divided the Israeli society more than anybody else. I think that any Muslim or Arab or even Iran could succeed to divide Israeli society as Netanyahu did. And the problem is that right now, even if he will lose the elections, well, it looks like that the opposition parties from the center left are ahead of him. That Israel will be a kind of Lebanon. Okay. Israel will be like Lebanon was divided until the Taif agreement. Israel will be divided. I don't see any Israeli government that will be able to uproot not even just the so-called legal settlements. I'm talking about the jungle. Okay. That is, the West Bank is reminding us the cowboy movies, the Wild West in the United States. I believe that they don't respect the law. Okay. And on the other hand, the Orthodox and Netanyahu is inciting against the Israeli parties that don't like what he's doing and using fake news, like what he said yesterday in his so-called press conference, is that, can you imagine any government in Europe that will send police to arrest yeshiva students, the Orthodox Academy, and take them out from their classes and arrest them.
Okay, yeah,
It's complete
we only
failure
have,
in Israeli, but the problem
yeah,
is that they are not doing their jobs.
we have 1 minute left, and Aida, I just want to ask for your final thoughts on that. So, okay, there is what's happening obviously outside Israel's borders, but from within Israel's borders, the issues of illegal settlers and how they're polarizing voters, as well as this issue over the military service of the ultra-Orthodox Jewish people. Do you see real divides there changing Israeli opinion now toward their governing coalition that could actually, again, manifest in the vote?
Well, first of all, I think it's, for me, more important than throwing away Netanyahu, or not less important, throwing away Ben-Gvir and Smotrich and those fascists. So it is, I think that many of the people, even those who want to play the same policy that Netanyahu is creating, they want to get rid of Smotrich and Ben-Gvir, which is good.
Okay.
That will guarantee, at least if we get the people to vote, that will guarantee to get rid of the fascists.
Okay.
It doesn't mean that there will be a very good government. That's only the first step at this point.
Aida, that will very unfortunately have to be the final word for this edition of the Newsmakers. We are completely out of time. I'd really like to thank all three of my panelists so much for joining us. Apologize for the technical issues, but thanks to our viewers as well for watching. Remember, you can follow us on social media, and do be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm Andrea Sankey. We will see you next time.